What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Early Wedge. My name is Nejad, and today it's just me and Mike McClure as Rick is traveling to this event. Of course, we are talking about the first playoff event, the FedEx St. Jude Championship. Mike McClure, I'm starting to like what I'm seeing from a pricing and from a betting standpoint. How you feeling going into this tournament?
Feeling good. Look, we're back to a no cut event. It's a major championship, right? So what I mean by that is that there's stakes on the line, but for what we are doing on a DFS show, the prize pools essentially kind of mirror some of those signature events. And so for me, I treat this closer to a major championship, and that does change the way that we build lineups. It changes the way players get owned, right? So when we are talking about a normal week and we're talking about someone being 6 or 7% owned, like if you catch someone at 6 or 7% owned this week, that's the same as them being 2%, so there's a lot of differences, again, when you get back to these no cut all play kind of events.
Let me ask you this, because obviously we're going to have to dive into what we perceive to be maybe some contrarian plays, but chalky ownership, things of that nature. We'll talk about that more on the Wednesday live chat. But when it comes to just your general opinion, whether it's a signature event or this no-cut event, it's pretty much the same field from a field standpoint. From just a number standpoint. Do you end up on like a stars and scrubs build more often than not?
Generally, yes. Just because you're guaranteed, those 4 rounds of competition. Now, I will say some of it depends on what we think overall scoring will be as well. It's one of those. Pretend we're talking about events that we've seen where we're like, minus 22 under. If we know that we're looking at a 22 under and a scenario that's no cut, then I'm far more likely to have stars and scrubs, and just knowing that there's so many opportunities. If it's a no cut event where it's really difficult to score, I'm probably more likely to have a more balanced lineup with, solid golfers all around, as many great golfers as I can get in one. So it really does depend. I am leaning slightly more towards stars and scrubs, but it's not a traditional stars and scrubs in the sense that these are the 69 best players right now.
Yeah, a good point. So. Yeah, in theory, yeah, certainly 69 as opposed to 70 because Rory McIlroy is in here. Mike, let's talk about the course a little bit and maybe get an impression of how easy you think this test is going to be. I feel like it's going to fall kind of right in between a hard course and a birdie fest from a scoring standpoint. With that said, it's TPC Southwind, of course. I'm sure Josh will put the scorecard up here, but at the end of the day, we're looking at guys. They to me, they don't need to be accurate off the tee in the truest sense of that. In other words, I want you to be in the fairway, but I also think a lot of guys are going to be clubbing down here and not necessarily using drivers on a lot of these holes. So I do think just looking at accuracy without some layering, some context of guys who might be clubbing down here and there, I do think that might be a little misleading, but certainly being in the fairway is going to be pretty key here. There's a lot of water on this course. You just generally don't want to be in the rough. But from an approach standpoint, and I know that's something you focused on when we talked at our quick look yesterday, the approach ranges, I don't know if you get into the buckets at all, but it does look like mid irons, 125 to 200. That's where a lot of the approach shots are going to be coming. The greens are very small. Now, where on the street is around the green play is pretty easy here, but I think there's going to be a lot of around the green shots personally, Mike, and I want to get your opinion on that. And whether it's, quote, easy or hard, I think if there's going to be plentiful shots in that category, I do think you want to be at least decent or showed a decent history here with respect to your short game, but also around the green. Your thoughts on this course?
Yeah, I think you're right on. It's going to play somewhere in the middle. It's not going to be the most difficult. I said it's like a major elevated event. It's certainly not going to play, like a true major event, but it's also very unlikely to be the extreme birdie fest. And some of that is because of the water that you mentioned. I want to say it's at least 10 holes, maybe 11 holes.
11, yeah.
Okay, 11 holes that water can come into play. So anytime you're over 50% of the holes with water coming into play, that's got to be something that you consider at least. I agree on the around the green play a little bit, whether it's just strokes game putting or around the green play in general. But I do think that it is going to be, kind of what we get year in, year out here. I know they've redone a little bit I think some of the putting surfaces may be a little bigger than they have been in the past, but overall, I expect it to play pretty much in line with how it does every year.
Any thoughts on? Okay, first of all, I want to point something out that Brian D89 is pointing out. He says greens are going to be super bouncy and fast, and that's partly because of the remodel. So, Mike, there's two reasons to be in the fairway. I mean, like you don't. It's going to be hard to hold these greens, in my opinion, especially if you're in the rough. But it might be hard to hold these greens anyway, and that's where we kind of want to get into weather and whether it's going to rain and how much it's rained so far. I do think it's been somewhat of a rainy season. But I do agree with that sentiment, which again is why I'm not necessarily isolating around the green play, Mike, but I am certainly factoring in tee to green and weighted tee to green, things of that nature. Is that how you're addressing it, or are you just kind of ignoring ARG altogether, scrambling, things like that?
Yeah, I haven't accounted for it a ton right now. Heavy on the approach play as always, but really more focused on the approach play and the proximity buckets. And I'll tell you why I'm slightly less aggressive on the around the green play and the putting is the fact that my golfers outside of injury are playing all 4 rounds either way.
Yeah.
So I'm not as worried about it. If this were a traditional event and we're talking about the cut, I'd probably be more aggressive in terms of the putting and the around the green play. But because we're getting all those rounds guaranteed, I'm going to focus a little more on just jamming in the guys I truly want that fit for a variety of reasons, and letting some of that around the green variance kind of play itself out over the 4 rounds.
Yeah, and I do agree. I never really focus much, even this week. I'm not going to focus a ton on around the green. I was just more pointing out, like, I am going to factor it in one way or the other, probably with a more macro statistic like tee to green. All right. We do want to get to this board. I see Jabel says Xander and Colin going to be the most owned at the top end is his question. I actually don't think so at all. So we're going to talk about that. Thank you for the question. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to open up this board and see what we like at the top all the way down to the 6K range right after this quick message from our partners.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver, touchdown!
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year!
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals!
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
We are back on the Early Wedge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Let's take a look at this board. We got 69 players to consider here, and at the top, no big surprise. Obviously, we got Scottie Scheffler at 13,000, and we are going to have the Scottie Scheffler conversation. But while we're here, I'll address the other guys that are 10K or above. Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas, and Russell Henley. Mike, I think this is interesting for a variety of reasons. I think you could interchange or swap JT and Henley for Fleetwood and the way Fitz is playing, even like Hovland. So we'll get into that later. I don't know that it's a huge deal in terms of the pricing of Henley versus Fleetwood or JT versus Fitz or whatever. But Scottie Scheffler's 13,000. I found it's pretty easy to make lineups. I'm not saying the pricing is soft necessarily, but your take on Scottie being 13K, too little, too much? How owned is he going to be?
He's going to be extremely popular. 50%. I honestly think he's mispriced in this particular setup. I think he'd probably have to be 14.5 to like really make it hard to get him or harder to get him. So yeah, what can you say about Scottie? He's been he's the best player. I mean, look at it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Like the worst result I'm trying to find was T20 at the Players.
Yeah.
And that was so far ago that it's like, I'm back to the point of like, I'm looking at the last 24 rounds at this point. Right. So like, it's so far removed. Like he's the best player by a wide margin. And when you remove Rory from the equation, he just further makes that gap even bigger. Right. And
yeah,
now the other 5 guys that I force into my lineup with Scottie are also playing the weekend. Like it's just, he's too cheap. So Scottie will be the most popular golfer. I am playing him at 13 and yeah.
Anybody else in this 10K range that we like? Xander, Justin Thomas, and Russell Henley. If you could rank them 1, 2, 3, and 4 in terms of likelihood to play, what would you do?
it may be exactly as it sits for me. Look, Henley's, I don't know how many people are going to play Henley here. I don't know how many people are going to play JT. I don't know how many people are going to play Xander. It's really going to be the next range that we talk about is going to determine a lot. But I could make a case for playing all of them. The strongest cases I would make would be for Xander and JT. JT's concern is certainly going to be off the tee. You can get in trouble here if you miss some fairways, right? So that's been the off the tee. Yeah, I mean, as we get Brian in the chat, JT scares me off the tee with all the water. There's no doubt. He's going to potentially have to club down a little bit, but the thing that you have to like about JT is he's finally found the putter, and JT finally finding a putter is scary when you talk about what the guy can do with his iron play. So I could be talked in to Xander at low ownership, who, by the way, Xander's been very good. He hasn't won tournaments, but he's been very good since the one bad tournament, right?
Yeah.
So I could get to all of them. As of right now, the only one I'm playing for sure is Scottie, regardless of ownership.
Yeah, I'm playing Scottie. I think the only other one I really like that I'm willing to play is probably Russell Henley. I mean, I've taken some notes on how they've played here, obviously looking at their just their recent history as well. JT, he's decent ball striking in 2022, 2024. He's a big gainer around the green which led to his T13 in 2022, and he's lost both times with the putter here. Small sample size, and it's Justin Thomas, you're right, has found the putter to some degree, but Russell Henley, when I look at his recent form, and he's been excellent across the board for 5 tournaments in a row. I mean, just really, really good, solid all around. And his history here, he's had some short game issues, but he's been really good with the short game lately. I think Russell Henley is interesting. Not a guy I normally play, but to be honest with you, Mike, it's probably Scottie and move on for me. I like the other 3. Let me ask you this before we get to the 9K range. If somebody is making 5 lineups and they're all the same amount of money, let's say they're 5 $10 lineups, would you recommend just like Scottie in all 5? How would you play those? Would it be Scottie in all 5, or would you make a couple, quote, contrarian plays that fade Scottie?
I would want to be overweight to Scottie. So if I were playing 5, I would probably have Scottie in a minimum of 3, likely 4 this week. I'm pretty strong on Scottie, pretty much wanting to be overweight. So if we think he's going to be 50% owned, just me speculating at this point, I have no factual or real data yet at this point. Just from how I am running and where I'm getting him, I would be stunned in a lot of contests if he wasn't approaching 50. I just want to get over, right? So if you're getting to 4 out of 5 at 80%, to me, that's meaningfully over. I wouldn't see a reason to be 100% at that point.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to the 9K range where, again, another guy that I don't normally play, that I don't play in the outright market. And I actually might play, I can't believe I'm saying it, but at the top of this 9K, and I'll just read the few guys that we have here. We got Tommy Fleetwood, Matt Fitzpatrick, Ludwig Oberg, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay. So of those guys, Mike, I think Victor Hovland's going to be very popular. I think people really appreciate his upside here. I think Tommy Fleetwood is going to get some ownership. It's going to be hard to ignore Matt Fitzpatrick, which by the way, this all lends itself to some people making lineups that maybe just start in this 9K range and they scoop up Fitz and Hovland and they move on. But I think those 3 are going to get some ownership. Outside of that, I don't think there's going to be anybody that's super popular. Who do you like in this 9K range? And before you say anything, the guy that I was referring to when I opened up this 9K range, I really like Tommy Fleetwood. And I'm not a guy that ever says that. So your thoughts, Mike?
I like Fleetwood. I like Fitzpatrick. I like Hovland, and I like Ludwig. I can make a case to play any of those. The ones that I will not play, I'm not going to play Colin Morikawa, and I'm not going to play Patrick Cantlay. Now, you're going to be able to catch very low ownership on a guy like Colin Morikawa, who traditionally is a great iron player, right? And could, you're catching him low ownership, guaranteed to make the cut, which maybe necessarily hasn't been a guarantee for him of late. There's all the reasons to want to be contrarian and go do that. I'm not going to do it this week, at least not planning on it right now. As I've said many times, there is a price point and an ownership combo that is making anyone playable. I don't think we're going to get to that point. So I'm going to say I'm probably not going there. I have no interest in going there unless it's just some extreme situation. The guys that I want to play, though, are Fleetwood, Fitzpatrick, Hovland, and Ludwig. Hovland will be the most popular. The ones that I'm most likely to play would be Hovland just by a slight touch, then Ludwig, then Fitzpatrick, then Fleetwood. But that's not an indictment on Fleetwood. It's like I'll play all four of those guys in some capacity.
So here's the thing about Fleetwood. And by the way, I'm not betting him to win unless it's in the without Scottie Scheffler market, because there's just no way that I think he's staring down Scottie down the stretch on a Sunday. But the thing about Fleetwood that I love, so everybody understands that like he's probably a great course fit. The recent form is great for Tommy Fleetwood. So he led the field. This is crazy. He led the field tee to green last year at the FedEx, and he lost almost 8 strokes putting, 7.98 strokes putting. And by the way, not only did he lead the field tee to green, but he was second on approach last year behind Aaron Rai. And if you look at the putting and you say, okay, well, maybe he doesn't like these Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens or what have you. He was T3 in 2023, and he gained 5.42 with the putter. So I do think, obviously, losing 8 strokes with the putter is an anomaly in its own right. But the fact that we saw the year before him spike with the putter leading to a T3, his around the green play here has been like a little iffy. But this guy's an absolute monster here with the ball striking. And if he can spike with the putter, he just, to me, he seems like a guy. I feel like there's so many questions, Mike, with so many guys in the 10K range outside of Scottie, and a lot of questions in the 9K range. I feel like Fleetwood has less questions than most. And I understand that might sound like I'm, quote, playing it safe, but I do think, I mean, he was T3 here in 2023. Again, leading the field tee to green last year in 2024, first or second on approach. I feel like there's plenty of upside there.
Oh, there's plenty of upside. And, you know, the narrative that the guy can't win a tournament always plays into your favor, particularly in setups where you don't have to make as many difficult decisions knowing that your guys are playing all 4 rounds. So I think that ultimately does hurt his ownership, which helps you if you like him. I'm never going to question the upside at all, because I think he's got the right combo of security and upside.
Is it likely Fitz and Hovland that are the most popular in this 9K range, with Fleetwood just very close behind each of them?
Yeah, I think the one that's clearly getting squeezed out on ownership is Ludwig, the guy that I want to play the most. Yeah. But Fitzpatrick, I mean, I would expect by the time the tournament tees off that, yes, Fitzpatrick gets steamed and is close to Hovland. You know, and there's a couple guys we're going to talk about in the 8K range that are going to carry some significant ownership as well. So just kind of navigating how we're jamming guys in lineups, that's certainly going to play into it a bit, but it's really difficult to go look at this log here and not like what you've seen from Matt Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. I mean, I had him at the Scottish, I had him at the Open Championship in the outright department. I wouldn't say he let me down, but we didn't get to cash that ticket. Last week, he was very good, particularly on the weekend. Sunday, I believe he was awesome, and he's gaining everywhere. Like, it's very sustainable, as you might expect. And if you look at his history, you can go ahead and ignore it, especially the last 2 years where he was a much different golfer than he is now. Real quick on Patrick Cantlay. Is he just a no play for you?
Yeah, as of right now, it's going to be a no play. And you know, the more I say that, like, the numbers check out okay. Like, it's not horrible in terms of the approach play, not horrible. In terms of one of the proximity buckets I care about, he's actually, according to my data, ranking second from 125 to 150. So you could talk me into it, and I'll say this. You could talk me into Cantlay before Collin Morikawa right now. In the case of Collin Morikawa, I simply will be stubborn and need to see it. And if he, you know, wins and causes me to not win money, then guess what? I will play DFS again next week.
That's the beauty of betting golf and golf DFS is guess what? It all happens all over again next week. I will point out, as far as Victor Hovland is concerned, you know, I looked his around the green play, his accuracy. I thought it was a little shaky, particularly lately, but he did lead the field ball striking last year at the FedEx St. Jude. And just next on that list, just so everybody knows, if you're maybe kind of taking notes and listening to this podcast, by the way, if you're watching live, hit the like button and thank you for being in here. But it was Hovland who led the field at the FedEx last year in ball striking. Next was Fleetwood, which I think I just referenced. Next was Decky, then Aaron Rai, Scottie Scheffler, Xander Minwoo, who, by the way, was kind of all off the tee. He didn't really do anything on approach. Cantlay, Jason Day, Wyndham Clark, Justin Rose, Grillo, and JT. I think that was your top 13 or 14, however many I just named there. So wanted to point that out. I do think Hovland and Fitz are going to get a lot of ownership. It's going to be Fleetwood for me, but I do like Hovland and Fitz as well. And Mike, I'll probably do a lineup without Scottie Scheffler, and those three will start off my lineup.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think that's kind of going to be the build. There's a guy we're going to talk about in the 8K range that this combination of player, it's Scottie and one guy at 8K that are just, that it's going to be a very popular start. And if you're not going that direction, I think that 3 guys in the 9K range is going to be the closest thing to giving you that kind of Scottie upside if Scottie doesn't win.
So I have a guess as to who that player is. We may as well go to the 8K range right now. And Josh is on the 1s and 2s. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Hello, Sites 501, Rick Funcannon, David Tock is in here. Jeff Stenberg is in here. He likes Harris English. We'll get to him. T10 at plus 325. Thank you for being in here, everybody. 8K range, it's got you. So you have to be thinking of Chris Gotterup or Ben Griffin.
Yeah, it's Chris Gotterup right at 8K. Look, I mean, we talk about sample sizes all the time. I've seen enough. I mean, since the US Open, he was T23, T26 at the Rocket, T21 at John Deere. He won, finished 3rd, followed it up all the way, on the plane again, back to Minnesota and still goes T10 after completely changing his life. Wasn't even supposed to play the Open Championship. Only got there because he won the Scottish Open. Like, I've seen enough. And the fact that he came back to the United States and T10, the opening round 63, like the round that he played off the jet, getting back to Minnesota was a 63. I am very confident saying that Chris Gotterup is here. And look, he's got so much to play for here still too, right? So he's just, to me, he's right in the top tier, and he's like, he could be 9K. And I would still be playing him right at a 9K at $1,000 price increase.
As big of a splash as Chris Gotterup has made already, I can tell just by looking at, it's like sizing him up, and he's got that Brooks Koepka swagger. Like, he's trying to make a bigger splash. Like, this guy is not satisfied, which is awesome. And I love that about him. And again, I'm guessing here, but he does seem like the guy with the type of demeanor that thinks he can win every tournament. And he's got tens of millions of dollars potentially on the line for the FedEx Cup playoffs, because again, it's not staggered scoring. He's going to be starting at the same number as Scottie Scheffler when we get to the Tour Championship, which I find interesting. Mike, there's going to be some other players that are going to be popular here. Now, Ben Griffin is going to be popular. Cameron Young might get some popularity. I don't think people are going to be like, oh, he won last week, I hate him now. And by the way, in 2022, where this was played at TPC Southwind in 2022, he led the field tee to green and ball striking. So if that putter is humming like it was last week where he actually won, this guy could absolutely just smash and give us the upside. Well, I didn't play him. Give everyone out there the upside that they had last week. So I wonder what you think about Cam Young and Ben Griffin, and then we can talk about some other 8K guys we like.
Yeah, so Cam Young is like, the ownership's clearly going to be elevated after what we just witnessed. And look, we've known Cam Young to be someone that has a ton of upside, just was never really able to go get it done until he finally did. I mean, what, T4 at US Open, T4 at RBC Canadian, like he had a T7 at the Truist, like he's been right there and knocking on it. So I can't argue with it. Never going to penalize him for missing the cut at the Open Championship. Like, it's a different style of golf. It's halfway around the world. It's one tournament. As long as you're, not missing 3 or 4 cuts in a row, like, I think he's a fine play. My worry is that he is a little higher owned than I would want him to be, which is why it's going to drive me to another guy in the 8s. We'll talk about it in a second. I already forgot the other name that you were asking me about.
It was Griffin. It was Griffin. Cam Young. Yeah, Griffin. Yeah.
Okay. So Ben Griffin in that same price range. I like him. I would be lying if I said I wasn't super concerned with the miscuts. Now, same thing applies to Cam Young. The logic in that I'm never going to penalize you for missing the cut at the Open Championship. The miscut at the John Deere Classic was horrendous. He was the favorite to win that event. I believe he's the most expensive golfer, just not good. But if you were willing to forget that one, I mean, his results are as good or better than Chris Gotterup. So yeah, he's going to be extremely popular. I like him. I'm not worried about playing him. There is a guy though that I know you and I have liked at times throughout doing this show and just throughout all the times over on the early edge doing golf that I think is a better play than Griffin or Cam Young this week.
So I'm going to guess because there's only so many I have to choose from. I know you're kind of a Decky guy, but I'm kind of not. So I'm going to rule him out. I don't think it's Decky. I've been a big Sam Burns guy. So I'm just going to go with Sam Burns at 8,900.
For me, it's not Sam Burns, but I don't hate him as well. It's Sepp Straka.
Oh, it's Harris English.
Sepp Straka.
Sepp Straka. Okay,
it is Sepp Straka, the forgotten man at this tournament to me. No one's... when was the last time we played Sepp Straka? I don't even know the last time I watched Sepp Straka swing a golf club, to be honest with you.
That's a fair point. Not getting a ton of coverage lately.
No coverage. Profiles extremely well. And Scottish Open T7, the Memorial T3 won the Truist. Like, the issue that I have with it is I told you this is kind of like a major championship, right? The guy's missed the cut at every major this year, essentially. The Open Championship T52, but he missed the cut at the US Open. He missed the cut at the PGA. He missed the cut at the Masters. So in loaded fields and strength, strong fields, if anyone's using that as a metric to model, he's not going to rate well, which is great for us if you like him, right? And he's more expensive, meaningfully more expensive than those three guys between 8K and 82. I like Sepp Straka, and he's going to be a piece of my lineups this week.
So Straka is interesting because on one hand, and I don't know if you want to show the history here for the last 3 years at the FedEx St. Jude, Josh, if you want to isolate that on Rick Run Good, but so we know he lost in a playoff to Zalatoris in 2022. Hopefully Will Zalatoris is getting healthy. I'd love to see him back on the course sooner rather than later. But I'll point out in 2023 and 2024, it hasn't been good. Short game has been awful here in those 2 years. Ball striking hasn't been a ton better. But Mike, I agree with you. Sepp Straka, when he's on and when the ball striking is on, is elite. I'm actually going to be off of Sepp Straka. I think the other couple of names before we get to the 7K range, I think Burns has tremendous upside. And I will say that I'm not as worried about him off the tee, especially going to the last 6 or 7 tournaments. He's gained off the tee in 6 of his last 7. But during that time, he's inside the top 20 of this field from an accuracy standpoint. So I'm not super worried about that. He was second on approach here at the FedEx St. Jude in 2022, and we know he can get hot there and with the putter. So Burns is a guy I'm interested in. I don't know that I'm going to get to Harris English. Mike, are you interested in Burns or Harris English?
I could be interested in Burns. Harris English, let's see. For some reason, he's not at the top of my mind, so he must not be. Yeah, so what's dinging Harris English a little bit for me is the proximity buckets. I actually have him weighted pretty high. 125 to 150 has not been good. He's near dead last in this field, in that area. The approach metrics over the last 24 rounds, okay, but not great. The thing that's interesting, again, you have to consider if you're looking like at these numbers, normally I would see Harris English and be like, okay, he's basically been 30th in approach play. Not too bad when there's 150 players in the field. He's 30th out of 69 here. And, he's priced at 8,400, which is still relatively, in the middle of that 8K range. So that's why he's not popping for me. If you like Harris English, we've seen the upside that he has. He's a true professional. I love the way he carries himself, frankly. And I never feel bad about having him in my lineups when he's there. For me, he's someone I want in a more difficult setup where I'm counting on a guy to grind and just go make the cut. But when we're talking all upside, everyone's making the cut. I kind of want a little more quote unquote upside, which I know sounds ridiculous because we just watched him finish second at a major championship, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, fair enough. He's kind of had an up and down history here as well. Some short game issues. He's been great on approach. I think it was 2023. He was really good on approach, but has had some issues in other places. All right. Real quick before we get to the 7K range, there was only 3 guys we didn't talk about, so I just want to mention them real quick. I'm going to be a no on all 3 of these guys. It's Aaron Rai, and it's not because I hate them. It's because there's other guys I like better. I'm going to be a no on Aaron Rai. I'm going to be a no on Corey Connors, and I'm going to be a no on Keegan Bradley. What say you, Mike?
I'm definitely going to be a no on Keegan and Aaron Rai. Corey Connors, there's an ownership combo that I could talk myself into. I don't think it happens, but The guy's good off the tee, hits a ton of fairways. I know he's going to be playing out of the fairway. So I don't love it though. Probably mostly the problem is if I start like the rest of the field, Scottie and Goddard up, I'm probably not jamming $8,500 Corey Connors in next.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. We pretty much just talked about every single guy from 8K and up. We're not going to do that in the 7K and 6K range. We're just going to pick a few guys we like, maybe answer some of your questions. If you like a golfer or not, let us know. Maybe you have a betting number you want to ask us about as well. Again, Mike, I'm considering right now, I haven't made any plays yet in the outright department, but I'm considering Fleetwood in the without market in that 18 to 20 range. And I'm considering Hovland in the without market, which I believe, again, without Scottie Scheffler, I believe is in that 28, 26 range. Those are the two outrights I'm considering at the moment. I'll probably only have like 3 because it's a 69-person field, maybe 3 with a super long shot or something. We'll see how that pans out on the Best Bets show tomorrow. But we are going to take a very quick break and then hit the 7K and the 6K range right after this message.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
We are back on the Early Wedge. I'm with Mike McClure, and it's time to address the 7K range. Chris Kish says, "What's up, guys? Glad I caught you." There was another really nice message earlier in the show, and it was from Zach, not Zach Kasenki. It was different. Oh, Zach Smith. He says, "See, and Mike, thank you for all your hard work and putting out an entertaining show." I will say this. You don't have to thank us, but we appreciate it. Two of the hardest working guys at SportsLine are on your screen right now. There's a lot. Everybody works hard at SportsLine and on the Early Edge, but Mike and I know this because we're on shows together so much. Mike, you're on HQ so much. So I know everybody appreciates for that. You're going to be joining me for Fantasy Football Today DFS. We're going to be starting shows for that soon. So if you like PGA DFS and NFL DFS, good news, because we're going to be doing NFL DFS once a week. We're going to be setting you up for every single main slate, some showdown stuff, all kinds of stuff there. So stay tuned. Again, Fantasy Football Today DFS. Go ahead and subscribe to that podcast now so that you have it when we get started. 7K range. Mike, there's not a ton I like here. We've got Josh has put up the candidates. A couple jump out at me. I was going to go in on JJ Spawn, but upon further review, I'm kind of out on him. I think Wyndham Clark is very interesting, but in this 7,300 and up range, Mike, I'm not really interested in anybody. Clark, I kind of appreciate the upside. I think Harmon at 7,300 is very interesting. Some interesting history from him. Denny is interesting. I'm not super enthused about playing him. And then we scroll down to this 7,200 range. Kurt Kitayama popped for me a little bit. Chris Kirk popped for me like he always does. Had him outright last week. Outside of that, I'm kind of out on this range, Mike.
Yeah, it's a fascinating range, to say the least. Look, when you talk about approach play, guys like Kitayama, Akshay Bhatia even, they're going to rate relatively well because it's just what they do, right? I'm going to comfortably say I'm going to be out on Akshay after what I would call maybe some underwhelming either finishes or just performances overall. Obviously was going to miss the cut, so withdrew when the weather delay happened, but a little disappointed there. So I'm going to be out there. Kurt Kitayama, I think, is maybe found it again.
Yeah.
He's someone I expect to just be extremely streaky, right? So I like what I've seen. It's always when you see tournaments like John Deere and 3M and like you have top 5 results at both of those, like awesome. You played great golf and everything, but consider who showed up to play the tournaments with you. You play the Wyndham, some better names there, still 31. I think he's okay. I'm probably not going to get there on Kurt Kitayama, but you could potentially talk me into it. JJ Spawn is the one that I like. Daniel Berger is the one that I like at 7,800.
JJ Spawn. Okay. Go on. And there's somebody in the chat that loved Daniel Berger. Go on.
Yeah, I like Spawn and Berger. Look, if you look at Berger, just total strokes gained, he's not been great over the last, 24 rounds or more. But all the other metrics, I really like it. Like he's 8th in approach, 5th in fairways, top 15 in the proximity buckets I care about, 6th in terms of strokes gained off the tee. The question with Daniel Berger is like, can he putt, right? And while there's been a big run of negative, He also right before that had a big run of positives. So considering that, Berger's the classic example of what I've said a few times on this show. Like, he's so good off the tee and on the approach that I care about. Just give me 4 rounds to get hot with the putter, right? Like, give me 4 rounds. So I like Berger. I like JJ Spawn. Now, the issue is one of them low enough owned that I can pivot off of Goddard or just jam them with Goddard? That's going to be the question to answer by Wednesday. But I like Berger a lot in this range, and I like JJ Spawn.
So I wasn't going to be on, and by the way, I can talk myself back into JJ Spawn. I don't know about Berger for me. Any thoughts on Wyndham Clark? Like some of the notes I took, and I was, we're looking at Rick Run Good right now. These are notes that I was looking at on his site. So if you're looking at modeling, like his putting spike came overseas, and I don't know how much you want to apply that to, what we have here with Bermuda versus fescue and slower greens versus what are going to be faster greens. But the around the green has been really good. The approach has started to pop. He's gaining 2 of the last 3 off the tee. I don't know. It's just one of those things where, maybe a club down course for Wyndham Clark, and maybe that explains why he was T7 here last year. I just think we're starting to see some flashes of Wyndham Clark's old upside. And so I just feel like from a DFS standpoint, might be a worthy play.
Yes. So Wyndham Clark, like the upside is incredible. The one that stands out to me just as being absolutely insane, I believe the 3M, he finished 12th while losing 4.5 strokes, almost 4.5 strokes off the tee. That's impressive. That's hard to do. Like to finish over 4 strokes lost to the field off the tee and still almost top 10 in the golf tournament, after being 11th and 4th, overseas. So the only issue that I would have with it is it's another course that introduces the water. And when you've got off the tee issues and water, and, for better or worse, he definitely is an emotional player, right? So it's like combining all of those things, yes, it's great that you get 4 rounds, but to me, it introduces a ton of variance. I don't know. You could talk me either way, Sia, honestly, on this one, but I don't like playing Wyndham Clark, so I'm probably not going to play Wyndham Clark.
Yeah, I have a feeling I'm at least going to do one lineup with just like a bunch of mashers that can score, and that the masher thing might not be good for this course, but like your Clarks, your Goddard-ups, some of the guys who might not profile super well in that accuracy range, that just can fill it up when again, because the accuracy isn't always not there for those quote inaccurate players, but certainly the upside is there because of what else they can do off the tee. All right, anybody else in the 7K range before we move to 6, Mike?
7Ks, I mean, you mentioned Chris Kirk a little bit. I guess on just talent, like raw talent, right? Go back to raw talent. He hasn't been in great form. Shane Lowry at 7,400. Like, it's cheap in this field, right? So yeah, but
that's fair. Probably going to find some fairways as well. Sites asks, any thoughts on Fowler? I kind of like Fowler. I just don't know that I like him enough to play him. He's going to get the 4 rounds, but he's just so like every round, you just don't know which Ricky is going to show up.
Yeah. I want to like him. I liked him a little bit last week. I'm probably not going to get there, but it is going to be important again to follow some of the standings as well. Trying to get inside that top 50 here again, top 50 for many, many reasons. Ricky's coming in 64th. He should be extremely motivated to not only go out there and play, extremely well and try and win the event, but, just really be focused on getting inside that top 50.
Yeah. David Talkin here says, if you play Xander and Scottie, which I'm not going to do, but he says you get 6,450 left. Can you do that much? So I did a lineup before the show with Fleetwood and Scottie, which left me, I believe, 67.75. And this is actually a good transition to our 6K range, Mike, because there are guys in the 6,200, 6,300 range that I don't mind playing. And if you're willing to play a couple of those guys, again, maybe not in a Xander Scottie lineup, to me, that's a little too much, but a little too rich. But if you're willing to play a couple of these 6K guys who are going to get 4 rounds, you can build yourself back up into that 7K range. So it's a thought. I don't know if that's something you're going to do, but let's talk about some of these 6K guys, Mike. Any that jump out at you? We've got Josh has the screen up here. A couple that jumped out at me. I'm willing to go back to Emiliano Grillo. I do like Jacob Bridgman out here, and I was actually pretty impressed, at least through 3 rounds, how much he was hitting fairways, which I do think that's a discipline thing with Jacob Bridgman, because I don't know that he's always hitting fairways. So I think at a course where he might be clubbing down, it could be good for him. We know we can get hot with the putter. Those were a couple that jumped out to me. We can kind of go back and forth here. What 6K guys do you like?
Yeah, for me, it's clearly Emiliano Grillo. He's too cheap again. I really like him. He'll probably catch some ownership because he's been a name that's been clicked the last few weeks. Just kind of the way people are. It's a comfortable click. So I like him. I'm going to play him. How about Potgieter? He's down in the 6s again. Winner on tour at the Rocket Mortgage, but also at the Schwab. Like, not good when he went back across the pond. Miscut. But I could get talked into him there. Other 6K guys that stand out.
Ryan Fox or Bud Cauley do anything for you?
Yeah, both of them would. So the Bud Cauley one, I want to look at Bud Cauley. What stands out to me, it's kind of what I thought. Bud Cauley is more like the only reason he's playing right now is because he had a really good run in March and April, essentially, right?
That's right.
I guess he wasn't horrible at the Travelers, John Deere, Genesis, like not there, but what he really was special in March and April that put him in this position. And the recent play has not been good enough for me. Over his last 10, not gaining strokes in terms of total strokes, definitely not on the last 5. I'm going to be out on Bud Cauley, but again, it's just, I'm valuing recent play quite a bit here this week.
So a couple of guys that haven't been great on approach, but I do think have some upside, and they're being asked about in the chat, particularly Sam Stevens. I don't mind Sam Stevens. I don't mind Andrew Novak. I prefer the names we already talked about, like Bridgman and Grillo, for example. But I think both of those guys, especially Stevens, has been flashing it lately, have some upside.
Yeah, I'm willing to forgive Stevens on the miscut. I did not necessarily see the miscut coming next week, but it certainly did last week. Yeah, Andrew Novak, I could also be okay with. Again, I think he's just more talented than the price point. Fox doesn't quite hit enough fairways for me.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to be out there, but I certainly would get the argument. How about Thomas Dietrich at 6,400? Dietrich is someone that hits the proximity buckets really well for me. I could probably play Dietrich if I needed another 6K guy, but it's clearly Emiliano Grillo first for me in the 6s.
So your guy, Ryan Gerard, is also in this range. Another guy that the ball striking is there. It's just the putter that is a huge problem. Would you be willing to go back to Ryan Gerard, or are there just too many that you like above him at this point?
I think it's okay to go back to him. There's too many I like above him. So I'm probably not going to go to it, but as we see in the chat from Brian, it is an excellent point. It is, again, in theory, the top 69 players in the world right now that are eligible to play are playing this tournament. So while, you see names, you may not like them, there are golfers that over the last year of their life have been good enough to be in this tournament.
It's true. I would say for me, the cutoff, though, is Jacob Bridgman at 6,300, which still includes everybody but 10 of the 69 guys. And I say that because a lot of these guys did well at one point in the season that was not a recent point of the season. And then it's just been a cascade of miscut. And I'm talking about mainly like Steven Yeager, although I don't think Steven Yeager, I think he could do okay. Brian Campbell could do okay. He actually just won not too long ago, but it's like Davis Riley, Patrick Rogers. Well, here I am going back on my word. Patrick Rogers flashed pretty well last week at T15. So Cam Davis, Joe Highsmith, Tom Hoagie. It's a fair point. Like, all these guys are good. And I think, Mike, that's why people like doing the stars and scrubs approach, because you're getting 4 rounds. And especially when you get to this part of the season and you get to the playoffs, you're getting 4 rounds from a guy who's shown tremendous upside, and it hasn't been that long ago.
Yeah, no, it's important things to remember. The 4 rounds, and again, all of these guys within the last calendar year have found have found it. So, I also saw a question about Sung Jae. I think it was actually from producer Josh here. I'm not going to play Sung Jae. There was a scenario last week where he was great and was going to continue to go on and maybe even win the event. That fell off relatively quickly. But when I looked at Sung Jae's little log there and just looked at the approach play, the only thing more consistent than his bad approach play is just Scottie Scheffler being good at golf. Like, those two things are the same. How bad Sung Jae's approach play has been and how good Scottie Scheffler has been. So I'm out on Sung Jae. I know I'm famous. Look at the string of red on the approach.
Jeez.
It's ridiculous. It's like the most consistent thing you could bet on is Sung Jae losing strokes on approach.
It's actually incredible.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
He broke the streak at the Wyndham, but this is difficult to do.
Yeah, it's hard to do. Now he's clearly making up for it, in other ways, in a sense, but look how many missed cuts are in the screen. Lots of T50s, T60s, which if you're finishing T60 in your Sung Jae, that's a miscut. It's essentially a miscut. So I'm out until he wins a tournament, essentially.
All right. Let's maybe a couple of macro questions before we get out of here, Mike. Let's just go back to how we think your model is going to build and how you are going to build lineups this week. Is it probably going to be Scottie Scheffler, another 9K guy, and then move down and get some scrubs and then a couple of middling guys?
Yes, it's likely to be Scottie Scheffler and then whatever combination of ownership and upside that I can fit is likely what the computer is going to give me. It's definitely going to give me Scottie from what I'm seeing. And when I tell it not to give me Scottie, that's where I think things get kind of interesting, because if I don't play Scottie, I can play an upper 9K guy and then 4 8K guys.
Yeah.
Or 3 9s and still get some unique combo. So I'm going to play 3 lineups only. Probably 2 Scottie lineups and 1 lineup that is either 3 9K guys or 1 upper 9 with 4 8s and then something else.
I think that's what I'm going to build a few more than 3, but it's going to be, I'll probably be at the field on Scottie, which is probably going to be somewhere in that 40 to 50% range, probably short of 50%, but pretty close to 50%. I'm going to probably have half my lineups at that range with Scottie. And then the other half I'm going to showcase some of those 9K guys that we talked about and that we love.
I love it. I think that, again, remember guys, no cut, 4 rounds. Yeah. Get crazy with it.
Yeah, this will be fun. I'm really looking forward to this one, Mike. I think when it comes to next week, there's 50, so it's a lot more difficult to kind of find contrarian plays and contrarian builds, and that we'll talk about it next week. But then we get to the Tour Championship with 30, and then that becomes pretty difficult. But this particular event, I'm actually really enthusiastic about. So I'm looking forward to it. I will remind everybody we have the Best Bets show tomorrow at 7:00. We have the live chat on Wednesday at 4:00. And then I do want to mention on CBS Sports Network at 1:00, we have an early Wedge episode, which will be in the middle of the FedEx St. Jude. It's really, Mike was joined us last Friday. I don't know, Mike, if you're going to be on with us this Friday as well, but it was me, Mike, and Jason Sobel. And we were making live plays and just assessing the cut line. It was a bit of a cut sweat type show as well. That's 1:00 on CBS Sports Network. And then again, the 10:30 in the morning show on Sunday. There were a couple people, Mike, that cashed in on your under strokes. I can't even remember the player right now.
Kirk.
Who was it?
Chris Kirk.
Yep. Can I tell you, I really did make that play on Kirk in that without market. I had him outright as well, but on Sunday, he was so underwhelming with the ball striking. I was very, very disappointed, even though he only fell, he was 2 back of Mac Meisner ultimately. Lori Switzer, she's the one that, and I got some thank yous through me to you on Twitter for that play as well. A lot of live plays that we discuss on that Sunday show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us. we talked about a lot. We got a lot more to talk about this week on this SportsLine YouTube channel. That's Mike McClure. It's Josh on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s behind the camera. You'll probably see him a couple of times in front of the camera at some point on this show this week as well. My name is Nejad. Again, this is the Early Wedge. Thank you very much for joining us. See you next time.